As I mentioned earlier, my eldest child just didn't want to play board games. The first ones that she and most American children are exposed to are Chutes and Ladders or Snakes and Ladders and Candyland. And she was not interested in playing, but Whitney, her younger sister, loved playing those games and picked up an enormous amount of peripheral information. So when Brian came along and couldn't play, I thought, well, there must be a way. But he broke the board and he moved things backwards and forwards and didn't understand when he won and would hit the board and all the pieces would go flying. So it was always a very unhappy experience. The first thing I realized is that children, in order to do a progression, need to learn a concrete progression, filling things in. These games require you to move abstractly. For instance, from the yellow, and then if you spin blue, you move to blue. But who knows if you move back or to this blue or this blue? So that's an abstract sequential progression. And children sit all around the boards. They don't just sit in one spot. And I realized that I had to solve the problem for them of knowing where they were in space. So I developed 2 chips on the first game that I developed. And the first one who draws 2 stars, that means that that child will sit here facing his red cars, his red track. He will go second. The child who draws the blue star will sit next to him. He will use the blue cars and the blue track. The object of the game is to get all of your cars on the track and win by exact count. Now, in order to play these games, you have to have the ability to match the picture of 1 car to a card that shows 1 car, or 2 cars to 2 cars, or 3 to 3. And you can only put the number that it shows on the card that you turn over here on the track. So if you draw a 0, you can't put anything. If you draw a 1, you put 1 car. Now, if you have 9 cars on the track, and you draw a 2 or a 3 or a 0, you can't move. So that teaches exact count. But even then, Brian didn't know that he had won. And that's when I developed the pretzel. We originally called these the pretzel games, because the first time I won and I ate the pretzel, then there was no question he wanted to play again, and he ate the pretzel. I thought, well, now we can go back and play Candyland. But this is very elementary. And it took a 9-game sequence in all of these different boards, always going back with major new concepts to the first board where they share a track. And these all, by the way, are tactile. So if it moves, the pieces stay where they're supposed to be. And eventually, children, very young children, 4- and 5-year-olds, can learn to play Sorry and Monopoly, not mortgage properties, but they can learn where they are in space and to play an abstract progression. On this one, for instance, they go around the track and they learn to go around moving 1 car at a time, but they also learn retrogression. And instead of using cards, they use dice. So once I had solved that problem, then the question was, where was Brian in time? And he kept asking questions like, when's a birthday party? And I would say to him, in every way I could, I would explain it. And one morning I said to him, don't ask me again. He had asked me maybe 20 times by 9 o'clock. So I finally said to him, look, the birthday party's Wednesday. Don't ask me again. Just believe me. It's Wednesday after lunch in the afternoon. And he looked at me and he said, well, I don't believe you. Where is Wednesday? Is it inside or out? Bring me Wednesday, and then I'll believe you. So I thought, how am I going to figure out a way to bring him Wednesday? I frankly thought, the child's right. I'm just talking gibberish, because I didn't know where Wednesday was either.
Excuse me, Nancy, how old was he when
he was
asking?
5 at that time.
Don't you think that this is probably a pretty common problem with all children?
Many children at 5 have trouble with time, but they don't drive you as crazy as he was driving me. I mean, I had to find an answer.
Right.
to how it was. And I knew that I had to make it concrete, that many children with learning differences or learning disabilities, they're very literal, and they need to be grounded. Many times they're tactile learners, so they need to see it and hear it and feel it and interact in the learning process. So what I did was one Sunday morning I said to Brian, before you get out of bed, here's a card, and I want you to put it right here. And now it has a teddy bear on it, but at that time it had a picture of Brian. And I said, it says today, because that's where we are. We're always in today.
Nancy,
and this is a week.
Was there a purpose in having Brian's picture? Do you think he'd focus on it more readily?
Yes, because then he knew where he was on the calendar. So it's always better to have a picture of the child. But for commercial, you can't have a picture of all the children. So in the directions, I always tell parents or teachers to put a picture of the class on top of the teddy bear, or a picture of the youngster that's using the calendar. Children are very egocentric. They want to know where they are, and they're interested in me. And what I realized about children in their understanding of time is that very young children understand now. I want the brownie now. I don't want to go to bed now. I want to go out and play now. So what one has to do in teaching these children is give them a structure and add up the nows. And that's what I did with this calendar. So here was Brian in today, and the name of the first day of the week is Sunday. And then he got out of bed, and we looked out, and it was sunny. So we put up sun. If it had been rain or snow or clouds, we would have put one of those up. And then we had breakfast, and on Sunday he went to the park in the morning, and then he went for a bike ride, and then he played baseball, and then he had lunch. And this period right here between breakfast and lunch is morning. And it doesn't matter what time a child eats. It just matters that whatever he does between breakfast and lunch, he knows that that's the morning part of the day. And then after lunch, we went to the aquarium. When we came home, we did a puzzle. Then we read a story, and then we had dinner. And that part between lunch and dinner is afternoon. If we had stayed at the aquarium all afternoon and not done anything else, then I would have just left the aquarium and not filled in these spaces. Or if we had done 6 or 7 activities, we would have put up the 3 that he liked the best. After dinner, we watched TV, and then he went to bed. And this time here, between dinner and going to bed, that's evening. And the next day, Brian would move this to Monday, and we'd start again, filling everything in. Eventually, we would get to Saturday, and Saturday night, everything would be filled in on the calendar. And that was Brian's week. So that Saturday night, before he went to bed, we put everything back in storage. And in storage, we have all of the cards that a 5- or 6-year-old would do, all the various activities, including summer activities, winter activities. So the winter activities are not up for this time of year. Once a child understands what a morning, afternoon, and evening are, and is ready to understand that after Saturday comes Sunday, then we go to Monday, and eventually we introduce yesterday, which always follows behind, and tomorrow. And once they understand yesterday, today, and tomorrow, what is a week, and Monday, the names of the days of the week, and what a day is, then we introduce where we are. For instance, if it's Sunday the 7th of May, that number 7 corresponds to this whole day, and that every number on a calendar corresponds to one day of the week. So then they can understand where they are in the months and the name of the year, 1995.